Hello and welcome to SCHALE Raid Tactics, a series of videos where I will lay out details for bosses in the Total Assault mode of the Archive, and offer general guidance and strategies. This video will cover Insane Binah. If you prefer reading text, I have document guides written by myself linked in the description of this video. Otherwise, I'm Kozyu, and thank you for coming. Before we start, this video assumes you are already familiar with the raid on Extreme and below. To keep this video succinct, I will only discuss the differences between the lower difficulties and Insane. Binah is essentially the very same boss you have been fighting in the lower difficulties. It has gone through minimum change, and the changes that have happened are of very minor impact on your gameplay. Almost all of Binah's changes are passive. It will now deal piercing, aka yellow type damage, removing from play yellow armored tanks and making yellow armored DPS difficult to use. Binah will also apply 2 permanent uncleansable debuffs to your entire team, including specialists. The first is a 20% accuracy debuff. Although it sounds scary, in practice this debuff is useless for almost all DPS. Binah only has 100 evasion, meaning units with more than 100 accuracy will still have a 100% hit chance. This accuracy debuff will only affect students who will drop below 100 accuracy. The second is a 50% stability debuff. Stability is the stat which determines the minimum possible damage a student can deal per hit. This debuff is a little misleading. There is some background maths behind this, but I'm not going to go too deep into detail. All you need to know is that the damage floor for all of your students has decreased by 10%. For example, Marquis normally has a damage variance of 78 to 100%. After the debuff, Marquis' damage will range from 68 to 100%. Both of these debuffs don't really affect which students you use nor how you play. All they do is add extra random variables to the fight to make it more annoying than it already is. As for Binah's skills and attacks, all of them are identical to the lower difficulties, but they have made one change to make the fight less annoyingly random. Binah's attack pattern is now fixed. If the boss is uninterrupted, it will always do laser, missiles on repeat. If the boss is interrupted, which can happen if the groggy bar fills, if it changes phase, or if it does a sandstorm attack, this laser missile pattern can be broken. That is all the changes made to Binah for Insane. Since this boss is essentially identical to the lower difficulties, the team building is also pretty much identical. One thing to keep in mind as you watch is that over time, the best units you can bring to a fight may change over the course of the game's life, but general team building principles don't really change. Thus, I recommend you pay attention to the roles you have to fill out on the team rather than the units themselves. With that said, in order to handle Binah, I will recommend to have on your team at the minimum at least 1 yellow DPS, 1 defense shred, and a healer or shielder. For DPS, you typically want to bring the strongest yellow damage you have. Preferably, this unit will have red armor. Blue and yellow armor students have a very high risk of dying, but if you can regularly interrupt Binah's missile attack, their damage more than makes up for their fragility. Insane Binah has 5000 defense. This is equivalent to 75% damage reduction. In order to do any meaningful damage, all teams must have at least 1 defense down. The strongest teams will preferably have 2 defense downs, but the source of the debuff must come from different skills, otherwise they will not stack. A healer or shielder is recommended, especially in the later phases of the fight where Binah will continuously throw AoE attacks in quick succession. The remainder of the team can be filled with any support or DPS you see fit. Tanks can also be considered if you are having problems surviving. That is all for the team building. The fight against Binah becomes progressively harder and harder as you throw more teams at it. Not only is there a limited pool of defense downs, which choke the amount of damage you can deal, the extreme speeds at which Binah spams the sandstorm attack on the 3rd phase puts a lot of stress on your tanks and healers. As such, you want to make your first team the best possible team you can. The remainder of the video will cover in-game strategies you can use on the boss for an easier time. Groggy check. Calling this a controllable strategy is a bit of a stretch, but since it affects your decision making, I decided to include it in the guide. Because Binah's attack patterns are fixed, if you do exactly enough damage to trigger Groggy as Binah is firing missiles, you will cancel the attack, and thus guarantee the safety of your students. This is far easier said than done. In the first phase, you will need to deal over 2 billion damage in 1 minute. There is no secret technique to make this happen. You simply must bring your best students and use your skills efficiently to meet this cutoff. If there is something you want to consider, it is the fact that you can bring yellowed armored students to help. These students won't be in danger since your goal is to cancel the very attack that would kill them. Missile safe spot. The missile attack actually has a limited range. In the third phase, if you can pull your students far away enough from Binah, the missiles will not target nor hit them. Some units can move themselves out of range. This method is technically not unique to Insane, but you won't ever do this in the lower difficulties because the boss has no attack type threatening to instantly kill your back line. Also, due to the shape of the map, it is not very viable to do this in the first and second phase. That is all for the Binah Insane guide. Binah was originally a very simple boss. This simplicity did not change for Insane. In my opinion, I find this very disappointing since the devs have proven that they are capable of introducing mechanics that make a boss more interesting and more engaging. In fact, some players would argue that this boss is worse and even more miserable on Insane. Whether you end up agreeing with that opinion, well, good luck and have fun.